We'll assume you did, and even though I rant and rave every day in financial math, you still asked me to come and rant and rave some more for you. So here I am, whether you asked for it or not. And I was talking with my wife, Mrs. Elson Jr. I know there's lots of Mrs. Elson. Mrs. Elson, my primary, and I said, I want to give this talk. I want to share a story, but what I don't want is people walking away from the story thinking, oh wow, John Wilson's so awesome. She looked at me and said, well, you are awesome, and that's what they will think. So, now that we know you think I'm awesome, we can move forward. So I do want to share a story, but I want to share a truth with you, and then use a story that powers that. But the key is to remember it isn't about me. Whatever you hear in the story, it really is about Jesus. And so I don't want you hearing anything about what I might have done, because it's not me. And that's the key is God asks us, he says, hey, I've got eternal work that I'm doing. You're not doing anything. I don't need you. He doesn't need any of you. He doesn't need me. He just says, hey, do you want to participate? And if you do, there's great reward, there's great fruit. And so that's what he's asking each of us, moment by moment. And just like Mrs. Oliver said, don't wait. Today's the day. Tonight's the night. This is the moment. Don't wait. He says, I have eternal truth for you to harvest. Do you want to participate? So, reading for step. I want to share a little bit. Many of you know I do the rug race. Many of you have heard me talk about the rug race, and several of you have participated in the rug race. And I want to give a little overview, because I'm going to share a story from the rug race from this last year. I want to give a little overview of what the rug race entails, and so you can kind of get a picture as I'm talking. So go ahead and roll it. So, let me read for us part of a story that most of us should be familiar with. And I'm just going to read the first part of it. It's the story of the Good Samaritan. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? Jesus replied. How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus said. Do this, and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" And that's what I want to key in on, is actually the two questions is, Jesus, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And there's two responses, love God with everything, and then love your neighbor as yourself. And then you will live. And I want to look at that question, who is my neighbor? And so in the rut race this past year, I've kind of come to the conclusion I'll never be on the top of the charts. I've come to that conclusion a long time ago. And the rut race over the years has really turned into this platform just for God to teach me lessons and for me to be able to partner with whatever He has. And each year we go in, the people that go in, it's like, God, what do you want from us in this race? Because it's not winning. We know that's for sure. That's not going to happen. So what do you want from us? Now, there's a little picture of race. The one that we've been doing quite a bit there is a 50K. We've been doing the 28K. It's about close to 18 miles, and you go over all this rough terrain. You end up ascending about over 7,000 feet of climbing in that, and so that's over a mile of elevation gain, and that's kind of the equivalent if you went to hike Mount Sentinel from the bottom to the very top. You have to hike that about 3.5 times. And so it's quite the endeavor. And I've done it enough to kind of know what's coming ahead. Where it's like, okay, I know the elements, what they might be, if it's going to be hot or cold, and I also know what's coming ahead. And so I see a lot of people, they're racing out at the beginning, and you can kind of observe, and you see all the people in the video, those are the top people. They're smiling, they're actually running. That's not usually the case with me. And so they're like cruising on ahead, but the people that I'm usually around are the people on the back end that are suffering. And so I see these people and they're heading out full steam ahead. And not in a judgmental way, just an observational way. I see them go past me in the beginning and I think, I'll see them later, and I'll see them later, no problem. But it's not really a competition, I'm just making the mental note, sure enough, there they are, and there they are. And so it's this very challenging endeavor. So this last year, it was my brother Dan went, and then a friend Jim, and a couple other people, and we set up for the day, and the goal was finish, was the goal, it's always the goal, was to finish, and you have 8.5 hours to complete the whole race, and then there's checkpoints along the way. And if you don't make a checkpoint, they look at you and they say, go home, and they load you up in a truck and pack you out, and that's it. And so it's very difficult. People train for this all year, and they get to, they've trained in Ontario, Canada, on the flat ground, and they get to Montana, it's like, there's mountains. It's like, what did you expect? And so they get to this race, and then when they train, and then when the elements are hard on them, and this last year was about 80 plus degrees, and if you want a story about how body is in rut race and how miserable it is, talk to Dr. Hogan, Rick over there. He can share his experience with you, just absolutely brutal. And so people, they train, and then they wipe out, they don't finish. And it's a difficult, it can be a very difficult thing emotionally, mentally, physically, the whole works. So we took off, we started, our goal was just to finish. And so we were headed out, like I said, it's about 18 miles, and we were at about mile 3, and we're going up these switchbacks. And so you can see a bunch of people below, and you can hear all the conversations as well. Because people are, like I said, at the back end of the group, we're not trying to win, we're just trying to finish. And so you're encouraging each other, you're talking. Well, I hear this guy in the back, somewhere down below, and kind of in the trees, and he's just, it's 3 miles in, and he's like, continues off. And I'm thinking, 3 miles in, I won't be seeing him later. So we carry on, and I don't actually hear him anymore because we got to the next section and he disappeared. And I'm like, that guy, the breather. I call him the breather in my mind. So we made it. They ran out of water at one of the aid stations, and the chairlift broke, so they couldn't get water up there. It was super hot. It's like I said, 85 degrees or so. And you start up, go ahead to the next slide, Keith. You start this climb called Bone Crusher. I am smiling at that point. So we had a Bone Crusher, and that's the ascent to Lone Peak. And it's just really rocky. And so we all made it up to Lone Peak at the very top. and then you go through the aid station. And then after that aid station at Lone Peak, you have about 3 miles. Now 3 miles doesn't sound like a lot, but when you've already gone, 11 plus miles, climbed a ton of elevation, it's really hot out, and really rocky terrain, it can be a big deal to make those extra 3 miles before the cutoff time. And so I know, I've dialed it in, I've got my watch, I know exactly how far we have to go and how long we have to get there. And so we are now on the back end of the group of people that are walking, hiking, not many runners at this point. And so what's happening is all these people that are coming into this aid station at the top of Lone Peak, they have 3 miles to get to the next aid station, but they only have a certain amount of time. And they don't really know that. And so I'm trying to relay to them, hey, I start telling them, hey, you have 3 miles left, you have about an hour, this is the terrain that's ahead of you, and if you don't make it, they're going to cut you off. And you're now, 12 miles into this race, you don't want to miss out. And so you're trying to encourage people out of the aid station, and some people actually during this race, they looked at me and kind of laughed, and I thought, okay, well, that's your choice, but go ahead. And so we took off of Lone Peak, and as we're going down, maybe a half mile off of Lone Peak, lo and behold, I hear this. And I turn, and here's the breather. He is descending down Lone Peak right behind us. And I thought, this is incredible. This is actually awesome. So as he got near us, I stopped with my brother and I yelled up at him. I said, dude, it's the breather! And I've never met the guy. It was a little I don't know if he was offended. He ended up not being offended. He just laughed and he said, absolutely, because I breathe to breathe the pain out. Because when I got pain, I just breathe really hard to exhale the pain. And that's how I get through. I said, dude, that's incredible. Keep going. You're doing an amazing job. And he just had this look to him, I'm going to do this thing. He kind of had a little rounded face, red, and, but he was like, I'm going to do this. So he cruised on ahead. And so Dan and I, my brother, and our friend Jim, we got down to the bottom of the descent off Lone Peak. And after the descent, you have this, and everybody thinks, oh, now that I'm off Lone Peak, it's all going to be easy and we're making the aid station. And you have about 2 miles to make it to this next aid station, and it is the worst 2 miles you can imagine. It's a slow climb uphill, it's hot, there's all the exposure, there's no shade, you're already tapped out, and there's no water, there's no relief, there's no aid stations, but you have to make it. And again, we're in a group of people that are struggling. This isn't the top people, this is a group of people that are like, I either haven't trained or I have trained because this is the best I can do. So we got down to the bottom of the descent, and we're getting to start the ascent. And Dan, my brother, he came down and get in the flats, and all of a sudden he just starts going like this. And he's like, help! I said, you alright, man? He goes, massage my legs! I said, okay, sounds good. So I kneel down, I start massaging Dan's legs. They had completely locked up. And he could not move. He was just locked up. So I kneeled down and massaged his legs, and he's like, can you tie my shoes? Absolutely, I tied up his shoes for him. I was like, all right, you get going. I'm going to get the rocks out of my shoes. You keep going. I'll catch up to you. So Jim and Dan, they carried on. And then this guy, Andrew, popped up next to me, who I didn't know his name was Andrew. And I was kneeling down in the little bit of shade there was, and I was getting out my water. And Andrew sits down and just collapses. And he looks at me and goes, I'm like, oh, it's 2 miles, and it's a brutal 2 miles. I'm just going to tell you the truth, and you have to get up and you got to start moving. He's like, okay. And I said, do you have enough water? He goes, yeah, I got water. I said, okay, perfect. I said, can I have some extra for me? He goes, no, I'm good. So I'm packing my stuff, and then I see him digging through his pack. He's digging. And then he looks at me and goes, 3 minute expletives, says, I don't have water. I said, don't worry, man. Give me your bottle. And so I took I had 2 bottles. I took one of my bottles, filled his up, and I said, do you have electrolytes? He goes, no. What are those? I said, anyway, I got fizz tablets. I mean, I should be represented for Hamper Nutrition for those who know Hamper Nutrition. I've got fizz tablets that are amazing. I'll pop 2 of them for you. Anything. So I gave him the fizz tablets, and then I said, all right, we're gone. And I took off. And so I met with Dan and Jim, and we were marching, and Jim had actually, he carried on ahead, and Dan and I were marching along, and all of a sudden we see up ahead of us, sitting in the grass next to the trail, we see the breeder. And he is sitting in the grass, just kind of almost in a fetal position, just moaning. And we came up on him, and Dan, if you don't know, and some of you know my brothers, some of you don't, but he's, you know, if you think I'm forceful, he's very forceful. So we got up, and I kind of gave the, hey man, you can do this, let's go. And Dan just walks right up to him, looks down and says, get up. we don't know this guy, I just called him the breather. And the guy looks up and he's like, my legs are locking me and I can't move, I cannot move. And he goes, you can move, you have to get up. And the guy's like, I can't. He goes, get up now. Start moving. So the guy proceeds to slowly, push himself up, stand, and then through grunts, start moving his legs just slowly. And Dan's like, you can do this. Start walking. I'm going to walk with you. And so I moved on ahead a little bit, and then this guy started moving on ahead. Dan started, I said, hey, what's your name? He said, I'm Mike. He said, all right, Mike, I'm Dan. And then it's my brother John. And so we started marching Mike up this hill. And now we're looking at the time, it's like, oh man, we only have about 40 minutes. We have a mile and a half, which seems like plenty of time, but it's not. When you got Mike marching like this to go a mile and a half, you don't have time. So Dan and myself, we started saying, Mike, when you do this, you're going to have to start running. You're going to have to start moving quicker. So he starts just gritting his teeth, and he starts, okay, I can do this, I can do this. We're like, you can do it, Mike, you can do it. Let's go, we're here. So we start marching him up, and we get to the top of the climb, and then it starts to descend. And if you've ever done enough exercise, descending, I was just talking to Mr. Norman about this, descending is worse than ascending when your legs are locked. And so Mike starts going down the road, and I won't do it until last day. He is letting out full-out screams, just screams of pain. And we don't know this guy, but Dan, and he stopped and he goes, I can't go, guys, I'm done. And Dan looked at him and said, we will not leave you. You will make it. And we don't know this guy, we don't know his story. And I looked and I said to Dan, that's a bold statement, because if we stay with him, we may not make it. We're going to miss the cutoff, and that is, there was some tension in it for me. So Dan looked and he said, Mike, we will not leave you. Start moving. You can do this. So Mike started moving again, and then Dan started giving instructions. John, get the salt tablet out of my pack. Actually, he just very vague, so salt canvas. He's like, get the salt out, get your water. So I took my last water bottle, filled it with salt and water, got it to Mike, gave him another fizz tablet. He started chugging water, and then he started moving. A little bit quicker, a little bit quicker, a little bit quicker, a little bit quicker. And we took off, and we got over the final crest, and you can see the aid station. We had about 8 minutes to go. And I looked at Dan and I said, can you get Mike to the aid station? And Dan said, I can do it. And I said, awesome. So they left, and I said, I really feel like the Lord is telling me, go back up and look for Andrew, the guy that I given fizz tablets to before. And I just had that impression. I was like, Lord, do you want me to stay? The cutoff time is nearing. I think I can make it. Do you want me to stay and try to find Andrew? And I'm standing there and looking back up the hill where we just came from, and I said, okay, I'm going to go find him. I just felt that nudge, go find him. So I started marching back up the hill, and all of a sudden, in the skyline, Crestus body, and I looked and I'm like, Andrew! So I just started yelling. I don't know what this guy thinks of me, but I'm just yelling. I'm like, come on! And so he gets down to me and I said, we have 3 minutes. We have to run. And we had maybe a quarter mile left to get down, and we started this all-out sprint. And we made it to the aid station. And Andrew proceeds to drop. And we made it to the aid station, and we just with a minute to spare. And Andrew said, man, if it hadn't been for you, I would not have made it. And he goes, the fizz tablets and water, I couldn't have done this. And I said, okay, now we've got to refill water and get out of here. We've got to get to the finish line. So now you're up against the time frame of the finish line, and you have, again, another 3 miles or so, and you only have now an hour to make it. And there's this farm that many of you know called Little Africa. And you think you're done with all of the effort, and you get to the very end, and you have this massive climb out of the hole, is what we call it. And so I grabbed Dan and Mike had taken off. Dan had taken off with Jim. They had all disappeared. And I said, Andrew, do you want me to run with you? I'll pace you. And if you keep track with me, we'll be able to make it. They said, I'm right there with you. So we took off running together. And I kept telling, here's our time, here's how many miles we have left. So we got down to the bottom. And as we got to the bottom of Little Africa, we started our ascent, and we caught up to, we had passed Mike, and I passed Mike, I said, hey, you're doing okay? He goes, yeah, man, I'm doing good. I'm doing good, we're going to make it. I said, that's so awesome. So we cruised past Mike, and we're climbing out of Little Africa, and all of a sudden, there, I see this one lady standing, she's kind of bent over, and another lady like passed out on the side of the trail. So I'm like, this is kind of odd. So I stopped. I said, everything okay? And one girl was standing over and was like, I don't know. Okay. I said, well, do you know her? No. I said, okay, I'll take it from here. And this other girl was standing over, she's done. And keep in mind, 85 degrees, we're at mile 16 and a half, mile 17 out of 18. Everybody's done. In this group. We're not the front runners. So I said, why don't you go on ahead? I said, you guys go, you finish. I'll figure out what to do here. So I knelt down, and she was had heat stroke, heat exhaustion, and was going a little like in and out of consciousness a little bit. So I dialed the medical team at Big Sky Ski Resort and said, hey, we got a situation. Here's where we're at in Little Africa. And started, little basic first aid that I knew. Okay, take her pulse, ask her her name, what day is it, what race are we doing. And she was laying there, and her name was Kendra, and she's like, she just looked at me like, don't leave me. I was like, don't worry, Kendra, I'm sitting right here with you. We're going to get this figured out. We've got help along the way. So I took off my shirt on, I took the shirt off, and put it on her head, and got her propped up, got her water, and as I'm kneeling down there with her, up the trail comes Mike. And I look and I'm like, Mike! Yes! I was so pumped. Here he is, Mike, this guy. And he looks at me and he's like, dude, you're like Jesus. He's like, you're everywhere out here helping people. I said, oh, Mike, it's awesome. I said, do you believe in Jesus? He goes, no, I don't. I said, it's awesome. I just grabbed him and I said, I believe in Jesus, and here's the thing, I know he's real. And I am praying that you will experience him in a way that you will say he's real as well. And he looked at me and he said, John, it's people like you that may change my belief. And I said, go finish, Mike. You go finish. So Mike took off. I knelt down with Kendra. And then the first aid arrived. You can skip to the next slide there, Pete. There they were coming up the trail to meet up with Kendra. They were bringing a little mono, whatever it is, bed. To load her up and take her down. And so they were coming up. And I was looking at my watch and I thought, wow, I may still be able to finish. This is awesome. And so I thought, okay, I'll wait till she's all loaded up. And I had to call her. She goes, can you call my boyfriend? So I called her boyfriend, whatever his name was, Tom. I'm like, hey Tom, this is John. He's like, Kendra's okay. She just is getting some help. Don't worry. So I finished helping up there. I said I can stay if you guys need me to, but I don't have much more to offer. I don't have any medical skill sets. And they was like, no, you're good to go. I said, okay, awesome. So I take off. I'm the last guy in the course, and I'm thinking, I'm going to finish. This is awesome. So I cruise up to the finish of Little Africa climb. I take off, and now you got the 1 mile descent down to the finish line. You can hear the crowd, and you can hear the music or whatever crowd is left at this point in time. We're 8.5 hours in, almost to the back end. But I'm like, this is so awesome. Like, I'm going to finish on time. And I'm cruising down, and then I see another body laid out on the horse. I'm like, no! I mean, yes! So I was like, run up to this body, I'm like, hey man, hey, are you okay? Skip to the next slide, please. his legs locked up so tight. And then Jim, our friend, was right in front of him. And Jim was so mentally wiped out as well. He didn't even hear, but Dan's legs locked up, and he started like falling. He goes, "Keep going, Jim!" It's like dramatic thing. Jim never heard him, just kept disappearing down. Dan toppled over backwards, and several people stumble by, and like, and just keep going. And it's kind of like a good Samaritan story. So here's Dan, and he was trying to desperately find his salt bag in his backpack, and had torn all his gear. It was just thrown after him, and he couldn't move to find his salt. So I got there, I was like, okay, Dan, so I got him some water from him. I didn't have any water left. Got him his salt, put it in there. Got him, carried him up a little bit, fed him with salt water, and then we slowly started walking down to the course, or to the finish. And we weren't going to make it. There was no hope anymore. Time passed, the 8:30 cutoff time, and now you just have to do this slow walk in the finish line. And that was fine. I had come to a place of peace about it. I knew the Lord had destined me not to finish on time this year, and that was okay. And so we finished the race, which was really neat to do as brothers. You can go to the next slide, Keaton. Dan and I finished the race. I was right at the finish line. And we got to the finish, and we found Mike at the finish line. And